the Winter Balance Data Slate, the Winter War Scroll Update, the FAQ of FAQs. Games Workshop have finally decided to release the Balance Update, or what they're calling the Battle Scroll, for Warhammer Age of Sigmar that people have been crying out for about 4 weeks, for months even. It's finally arrived, and now they've released this Battle Scroll with points updates and a general overview of some of the changes that they've made, but they've actually updated a lot more than they've made quite clear on this Battle Scroll. So I'm going to go through every single FAQ update that they've done today and try to explain them to you. It'll all be timestamped below, so you can click to the bit you want to see. This is from a competitive AOS or like a match play AOS view, so I don't really go over the Path to Glory stuff. I'm going to try and do it as fast as we can, so let's go. So let's start with the core rules, okay? They've clarified like what is and isn't a sub-faction. I don't really know what this changes, but it might be for like just, I don't know. They've changed one of the heroic actions, one that people kind of find annoying, the heroic recovery. So previously this was roll 2d6, roll equal to your bravery, you heal a wound, or roll under your bravery, you heal d3 wounds. Now they've made it so you can't do this in engagement range, so whilst you're within 3 inches of an enemy unit. However, at the same time, whilst they've taken it with one hand, they're given with another, because now if you roll equal to or lower to your bravery, you always heal d3 rather than healing 1. So whilst you can't do it in combat, you've got more chance of healing just straight up d3 wounds, which is kind of nice. But also, as soon as you're in combat, you can't, so it's kind of like swings and roundabouts. They've also changed Unleash Hell, where now essentially if you want to use the command ability Unleash Hell, your weapons essentially have a 6-inch range. It's only models within 6 inches that can actually shoot at the opposing unit that's just charged you or just charged near you. And finally, the Amulet of Destiny. The Amulet of Destiny that every army seems to have. It was previously a 5-up ward save for the hero that held it, but now it's gone up to a 6-up, which is like kind of like a healthy update, I guess. Stormcast had 2 minor changes. We obviously have the Drake Scale Armor, which allows you to reroll saves against damage 2 or more as an artifact. They've clarified that this doesn't work against random damage, which is kind of understandable, but also kind of nerfs it a little bit, because now it's basically 2 or more, but you don't reroll saves against 1, d3, d6, etc. Kind of clarifies it as a whole, but I don't like this change. I think it should just be against 1, not 1 damage unless it's random. It's kind of like an understandable change to kind of make it simple, because you can still do 6 wounds against it with a d6 damage, but you can't reroll the save, whereas you can reroll against like a 10 damage, if it was a 10 damage. And they've also just kind of clarified like holy commands. Essentially, they're saying that it's a type of command ability, but it's not a command ability, and you can take one of each, which is just kind of, I guess, just like kind of just clarifying. It's not really changing anything. Orruk War Clans also received an FAQ, but it doesn't really address the Orruks. It's just about KRAGNOS, who had the biggest glow up of 2021. He's lost a couple of abilities, but he's also gained a hell of a lot. So he's gained Mightiest is right here, so it basically counts as 30 models on an objective whilst on full wounds, and that degrades over time, which is a really, really good change, especially when he's like, can be run with Sons of Bahamut and stuff like that, who already have that. So he counts as a bunch of models, and it degrades as his wounds go down, which is actually a really nice change. He's also gained End of Empires. Now previously he had like an ability which is just like +1 leadership for destruction models. Now this is like a 3d6 charge for all destruction models within 12 inches and can declare within 18, which is like super good. It's a really nice ability. It makes him like really imposing on the battlefield rather than being like, you get leadership. He's also gained Avatar of Destruction, which is an immense ability where basically he's immune to like instant kill type abilities such as like the Slayer of Kings from ARCHAON. Instead of him just dying, he just takes d6 mortal wounds, which is really good. Speaking of mortal wounds, he now has a 6-up ward from his shield in Violet, but it retained the ability to ignore endless spells essentially. So not only does the shield protect him from spells, it also provides him a 6-up ward save, which is like really nice. However, with all of these gains, he's actually lost Destroyer of the Draconic Empire, which is basically reroll hit rolls and charges against Draconic or dragons. I guess the dragons just needed one more buff after the 3 nerfs they had before they came out. Sylvaneth and Daughters of Khaine are really straightforward. Basically, Alariel, or whatever her face, big beetle lady, gains all the powers or all the spells from their lore, and so does Marathi and Daughters of Khaine. They're like super nice quick updates. They basically just gain all their spells from their book, which is cool. This is my Stoneblight army, thanks Louis. Soulblight had a massive update, but again, they didn't really address Soulblight, they just addressed Nagash. So this kind of covers Nagash in Soulblight and in Ossiarch Bone Reapers. Now his wound chart has been updated, so he only starts degrading at 7 wounds taken rather than 4, but his lowest bracket starts at 13 wounds rather than 14, so he's kind of gained in one way, lost in the other. The wizard paragraph on his data sheet or his war scroll now confirms that he gains all the powers from the lore of the faction he's taken in which is great. However, he's gained War Master keyword or War Master ability, so now he doesn't benefit from the faction of what he's been played in, whether it's Soulblight or Ossiarch Bone Reapers. He just gains the spells from that faction. Supreme Lord of the Undead previously allowed him to like make the entire army reroll saves of 1 and reroll hit rolls of 1, but now this just allows him to add 1 to the roll or re-roll the roll for any time he uses an ability such as Invocation of Nagash. Basically, when he revives models, you can either re-roll the result or add 1 to the result, which is really nice. Instead of his old command ability, he's got Death Magic Incarnate, which essentially allows him to choose a unit and give it +1 ward save, which is actually a really strong ability, but I'm not sure it's better than his old command ability of Supreme Lord of the Undead, which is now just completely different. Because you only choose 1 unit, and he can't choose himself either, so he can't give himself like a 3+ ward, which would be... However, he did lose Frightful Touch, which is essentially when he rolls a 6 to hit with his Spectral Claws and Daggers, his Ghosts. They do a mortal wound. That ability has been lost, but I think that's probably just an oversight. I don't think that's supposed to happen. I don't know. What do you think? And just a quick one, Ossiarch Bone Reapers, ARCHAON just gained the right keyword, and then Nagash got updated the same way, so they've both got identical War Scrolls in Soulblight and Ossiarch Bone Reapers. ARCHAON in Slaves of Darkness also got like a big change, and nothing else really changed in that book. His damage chart also was updated, so now he degrades after 9 wounds rather than 5, which is really nice. The Armour of Morcar received a slight nerf. Now, when he rolls a 6-up ward against mortal wounds, he can only ping that unit back to a unit that's now within 3 inches, rather than being the attacking unit. It's any unit within 3 inches. However, the main change here is that it can no longer be negated. Range is only very small, but also always goes through, which is kind of a nice change. His command ability, By My Will, can now be used on any Chaos unit rather than just Slaves to Darkness, which is kind of like a really nice little change as well. With him being the all-commanding godfather of Chaos, he can actually interact with Chaos, which is cool. Speaking of which, though, he did lose All-Seeing Dominion, but also gained War Master as well, so now he can no longer get faction traits outside of being enslaved to darkness, which is kind of like, again, gives you one hand, takes with the other. And this is what this balance update basically feels like. It just feels like all of the 3 big kits, or all the big kits we sell, all receive a buff and a nerf at the same time, unless it's Relariel and Marathi. Hedonites, Disciples of Tzeentch, and Blades of Khorne all kind of received a very familiar update, or very similar update. The Hedonites host keywords, which are the battle trait section, essentially only go on to Hedonite units now, not just Slaanesh units like it was before. The same with Disciples of Tzeentch. All their traits only affect Disciples of Tzeentch keyword, but every unit in the book gained that keyword, so they actually work. And then Horrors gained Tzeentch. Did they not have the Tzeentch keyword before? Awkward. And Blades of Khorne is exactly the same. Now their traits really only affect Blades of Khorne, and they gain Blades of Khorne where they didn't have it. Now, I think this is just to stop like sub-faction mixing. Like, I play Maggotkin, so in the old book you could take like Maggotkin of Nurgle, but then just run Skaven units. I think this is kind of like just to clarify that when you run Disciples of Tzeentch, we intend you to run Disciples of Tzeentch units, rather than just like Slaves to Darkness units with the Tzeentch keyword. And I presume this like affects taking like ARCHAON in these factions. Now he doesn't gain their traits, and a lot of the battle traits that their other units do have don't affect ARCHAON. But I'm sure there's some crossover, some specific abilities that do affect each other. It's just like the battle traits they don't gain, which is understandable. If you're going to play an army, play with the units you've got, not another book's units, you know? And that's about all of the FAQ changes. Outside of that, they did update the points for a lot of the units in the game. Basically, they've just changed a lot of the most problematic units, such as like Sentinels from Lumineth, the Bastillodon and the Salamanders from Seraphon. Orruk Gorgunters, they've obviously had a bit of an update, and then people were spamming them, so they've changed the points on those guys. And then Horrors as well have had a massive points increase, along with Chaos War Shrine, Chaos Sorcerer Lord, and Gotrek as well, because obviously like he's super popular in Order factions. But ARCHAON has received a 30-point increase as well, which I don't know if was justified. I'm not really sure. But also Nagash has come down 15 points because he no longer benefits from the factions that he's playing in. But pretty much everything else has just dropped, like, it seems like random points. The Knight Draconis stuff has stayed the same, even though they're in this balance update. They've obviously had an early update, so they've remained the same. But they've dropped a lot of stuff from a lot of factions that aren't really being played, such as like Nighthaunt and Beasts of Chaos. But a lot of the other stuff, like, I don't play too many Age of Sigmar tournaments. I've actually never played a weekend tournament, so I don't really know what the meta is. I'm just like kind of aware of like some good units like Lumineth Realm Lords with their Sentinels, for example. But with that, they've obviously dropped like the Light of Eltharion by 30 points, which seems like quite a lot. and then the Stoneheart King and the Spirit of the Mountain 20 points both. Now I know Lumineth are really strong, but did they need points drops as well as points increases on just one unit? I don't know. You're going to have to let me know down in the comments. But overall, it sounds like it's a healthy change of taking some of the problematic units and up them in points, and then a lot of the rest of the basically game is dropped in points, which kind of feels nice. So every army seems to have benefited. The only one that isn't addressed here, as far as I'm aware, is Maggotkin, but they've just had a book anyway. So it seems like a really interesting change. I'd love to hear your thoughts. Like, again, if you're a tournament player or if you're more competitive minded, you see stuff that I don't, let me know how it affects your army or how it affects your friend's army and what that might change for you. And yeah, overall, let us know what you thought of this video, and thank you very much for watching. I really appreciate it. I've been Mikey, and hopefully I'll catch you in the next one. Bye!